in the budget red book, which came out in April, as I understand it, public spending from April 2011 onwards, for the 3 years after that, overall is seen to fall by 0.1% in real terms. Is that right?
That's right. We're talking about the 3 years of the next planning period for public spending, which is basically the last 3 years of the next Parliament. You heard Gordon Brown reading out a series of cash numbers earlier. Well, if you say that public spending is rising on those grounds, that's such a flattering yardstick that it's virtually
because it doesn't take inflation into account.
Indeed, and the last time we actually saw spending fall in cash terms was in 1947, presumably demobilising from a wartime economy.
And under Mr. Attlee in a terrible winter and so on.
Indeed,
too.
absolutely.
So just to clarify it, in real terms, under Labour's plans, in the budget book, after 2011, public spending falls in real terms by 0.1%. But that's not very much. But then you've done some other things, because within that small fall, there are big rises in things that are not schools and hospitals. For example, I think you pointed out the debt interest and other things will rise. Explain that.
Exactly. Well, there are three main factors. You've got debt interest, and because the state of the public finances, we're accumulating a lot more debt, and therefore interest has to be paid on that.
And that rises.
And the Treasury is expecting that to rise by 8.4% a year over that same 3-year period. So you've got to take that out of what is otherwise a flat picture. In addition, because of the recession, the government's having to spend more on unemployment benefit and other social security benefits that we wish to. So if you take basically what the Department for Work and Pensions is expecting there, you're chopping some more money out. Then there are other areas of spending, smaller areas that the government has little control over, for example, contributions to the European Union. Take all of those things out and you're left with departmental expenditure limits, which is basically what Whitehall has got to spend on public services.
Right.
And that looks to be falling by a little over 2% a year in real terms over those 3 years. So a 10% fall if you're looking at the total effect.
Right. So let's just, if you take all these cuts across all the departments, it works out on your figures, I think, at about 2.3% a year for 3 years. So that's where you get the figure of an overall fall in departmental spending under Labour's plans of 7%.
7, that's right. 3 times 2 and a bit. Exactly.
Is 6.9. That's near enough 7. Now, if, as Mr. Langley for the Tories is saying, they don't want a cut in health, they want to ring-fence health. I know international aid too, but that's a small budget. Health is huge. If you do that, is it right then to say that the other departments then have to take a cut of 10%?
Yes, that's right. You've basically got to find £26 billion of savings. And if you say we're not going to take any of that £26 billion from health, then what's left has to decline instead by 2.3% a year, by about 3.3% a year. Which multiply that by 3, and you're at 10%.
And 10%. And Andy Burnham, the new health secretary, said last night, or at least implied last night on Channel 4, that the government, the Labour government, would do the same, because that's why the Tories are saying 10% cuts, because they've said they'll ring fence it. Now, Mr. Burnham seemed to imply that there would be real increases in health spending for the 3 years after 2011 as well. So he's both parties, so there he's 10% down as well in other departments. Am I right in thinking then, at the end of the day, both the main parties, for all this sound and fury, are actually saying the same thing?
Yes, if Andy Burnham has in effect made the same commitment that the Conservatives have made, they're both confronted with the same arithmetic.
It's both a 10% cut.
Exactly. Now, of course, the Treasury may take a different view of what's going to happen to social security spending and some of the other factors. So maybe for those reasons, they think that the squeeze would be smaller, in which case it loosens the constraints for the Conservatives just as much as it does for the government.
You see, when you listen to Robert Chote spell that out, and in the end, both the main parties are saying the same things, and yet you hear them all squabbling and fight. It's yet another...
Squabbling, actually dishonest.
Not telling us the truth.
Well, if I may say so, the Prime Minister's answer yesterday was, I'll use the phrase, because I know Robert wouldn't, he's too decent a guy, it was a dishonest answer. It was an answer which was deliberately calculated to mislead. Now, sorry, it was calculated to mislead. I'm not going to say it was deliberately calculated to mislead. That's, you know, the pressure of the Prime Minister's questions, I understand. Here's